Well, hello, everybody. we, we always start this with.
I never know when you're going to start going. What people watching this don't know is the fact is we've been yakking on this for, 50 minutes, and then just suddenly we start. I'm like, always making some dumb face.
Yeah.
Just isn't far from normal life, really. But anyway.
He never knows for sure what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it. So.
Yep.
But welcome to Tropos Home Discipleship. We're just ordinary guys, and I guess that can be debated too. But we're just ordinary guys. We're talking about the Bible because we love the Word of God. We love it. It has impacted our lives, and we do this in the hope that it will too impact your lives, and that you will gain this love for it also and read the Word. The problem in the church today is Bible illiteracy. People aren't reading their Bible. And so things are happening that shouldn't happen because we're not reading our Bible so that we can discern what things are right and what things are wrong. So that's my soapbox for today.
For the moment.
For the moment. So we're going to discuss Genesis 29, chapter 29 of Genesis, and we both have jokingly said this is going to be a fast one, but you know how that goes.
Yep. We've said that before.
Yes. I'm going to start a timer here.
Okay. That's a good idea.
Okay. So Mike's going to read it, and we'll talk about it and see what jumps out at us.
Let's do that. All right. It says, Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the sons of the east. He looked and saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it. For from that well they watered the flocks. Now the stone on the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, they would then roll the stone from the mouth of the well and the water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, My brothers, where are you from? And they said, We are from Haran. He said to them, Do you know Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And he said to them, Is it well with him? And they said, It is well. And here is Rachel his daughter coming with the sheep. He said, Behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered. Water the sheep and go pasture them. But they said, We cannot until all the flocks are gathered. And they roll the stone from the mouth of the well, and we water the sheep. While he was still speaking with him, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. When Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban his mother's brother, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the mouth of the well and watered the flock of Laban his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted his voice and wept. Jacob told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. So when Laban heard the news of Jacob his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Then he related to Laban all these things. Laban said to him, Surely you are my bone and my flesh. And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall be your wages? Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and face. Now Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, It is better that I give her to you than to give her to another man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to be him for a few days because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, for my time is completed, that I may go into her. Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a feast. Now in the evening he took his daughter Leah, brought her to him, and Jacob went into her. Laban also gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. So it came about in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, What is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served with you? Why then have you deceived me? But Laban said, It is not the practice in our place to marry off the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also for the service which you shall serve with me for another 7 years. Jacob did so and completed her week, and he gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. Laban also gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and indeed he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with Laban for another 7 years. Now the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son and named him Reuben, for she said, because the Lord has seen my affliction, surely now my husband will love me. Then she conceived again and bore a son, and because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also. So she named him Simeon. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons, therefore he was named Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord, therefore she named him Judah. Then she stopped bearing. So, where we left off the whole pillow, pillar thing, after we discussed the comfort of the stone, he's already made the vow to God. If you will be with me on my journey, give me food and to eat and garments to wear, and I return to my father's house in safety, then the Lord will be my God. So he's already covenanted with him. Just basically, I think, like we said before, was just an echoing of what God told him he would do for him, these very things before. So he's already set up the pillar. It's sort of like, not really a covenant, sort of like a, I don't know if you want to call it almost like a religious promise, but basically he's already done that. Now he's on his way, on his journey, and, he comes into the area and, sees the field of behold, sees the, I guess where they water the flocks, with the big stone in front of the well. So obviously, if you got a big stone in front of a well, this is a very important, water sources in that time were hugely important. But obviously, there's some sort of communal situation, on this particular one. And I also read that, interesting enough, that the idea behind a big stone may be a couple different things. One, it was a communal thing to keep, obviously people weren't supposed to be in it, out of it. Also to keep it from collecting sand, and also B, to keep it from drying up from the beat down of the sun. I mean, like I said, we are in a fairly treacherous area. So,
well, and evidently this was a very large stone, because they were waiting for all the flocks to get together so all the shepherds could move it together.
Obviously, it took some doing.
Right. Until Rachel shows up.
Yeah.
And Jacob has to impress the woman.
That's right.
So he moves the stone.
He's like, there's this pretty girl coming up, baby.
Yeah.
Well, first, he talks to the shepherds, like, where are you guys from? From Haran. He's like, this isn't time. Water them and go put them back out in the pasture. We can't do that because we need them to. Obviously, they felt, where they knew from past experience, they couldn't just roll this thing themselves, or for safety reasons or whatever, surrounding whoever might be surrounding it, that all this group probably needed to be big enough to fend off any issue. But, then they asked him, well, how is, Laban, son of Nahor, which I guess actually is his grandson. But I guess that's, son of. I said he's good. And, there's Rachel coming up, that's his daughter, with their flocks. And of course he sees her and he's like, ooh la la, let me show off my muscles and be impressive. This is like the chicken dance, for the other. He's peacocking right now, showing his feathers.
He's strutting.
Yeah.
Watch this.
Yeah, of course she doesn't know him from Adam, so this guy just stroll up, and think of it from her for a second. Stroll up, move this big rock, rolls up, and just kisses her. Like, you don't do that back then, It's like, who is this crazy? What?
And I was trying to think earlier. I don't know that there's very many places in the Bible that you see where a man kisses.
No.
Especially out in public.
Premarital, that I imagine that would be looked down upon.
And so it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on here? But
at first you're like, who's this guy putting a smooch on me? Just because you rolled around that stone don't mean you'll get no play. But as ultra conservative as things would probably be, depends. Honestly, this is the only time that talks about it. But again, we're in a foreign land. This is not, foreign land, idolatric, worship. We don't know what kind of weird, freaky things the surrounding areas would be in. But of course, this line, it would be different. But yeah, you probably just don't roll up to a woman and a shepherdess and just
Yeah. But it says he kissed her.
Yeah.
Wept aloud, and
Right.
then told her that he was her father's relative.
Well, that's what I thought was funny was he kisses her first, then tells her.
Yeah.
What was her reaction? I mean, yeah, I imagine this doesn't happen every day.
Was that because she had a knife to his throat, or?
Yeah. Is that why he was crying?
Yeah.
I don't think so, but it's still funny. It's just kind of funny. Yeah, I don't think that was a regular occurrence then. Just some guy rolls up to you.
Yeah. Just pretty wild.
Besides, he's been traveling for a bit, and she's a shepherdess, and I mean, she's been out amongst the flocks for a while, out there in the sun.
Yeah.
I imagine people weren't smelling too good, but at that time it wasn't obviously as important as it is today. So anyway, so yes, so he does. He peacocks, shows his tail feathers, moves the stones, puts smooch on her, and then tells her what's going on. He weeps and and tells him where he's from, and
she runs and tells Dad.
That's right. Yeah, as she should.
Yep.
Like, Dad, this crazy guy just kissed me, says he's related to us.
Yeah. He says he's related to us.
Is what he says he's related to us. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it says he lifted his voice and wept, and he doesn't say that he particularly praised God, but lifted his voice. I mean, that's usually, I'm sure he, I mean, did he let out a woo-hoo? I mean, but
yeah.
I'll tell you what, man, these patriarchs, dude, they always end up with the pretty women. So, Sarai was evidently nice to look at, even into her later part of her ages, where Pharaoh wanted her later on, in her age. Got, Isaac's wife evidently was attractive, and now Rachel's the pretty one out of her sister. So just like, Pharaoh face and form. So,
Yep.
So they're not doing too bad. So he meets Laban. Laban, hears him coming. He embraces him, kisses him. Probably as family members should, brings him in, and then he relays everything to Laban. What he's told to do, and stays with him for a month. And it was this thing that I read in John MacArthur's commentary. He said it was actually customary in that time, I guess, to bring in somebody for 3 days, and by the 4th day you work out your either their wages, they either move on, or their wages to stay and work for you or something like that. So that seems to be a pretty customary thing. So, but of course he's family, so he stays around for a month, and of course while he's there, he says, Laban says, what shall your wages be? And he's got 2 daughters, and he's got eyes for the younger one and wants her, and says he'll work for 37 years for the younger daughter. So basically that service is the payment of the dowry to take her hand in marriage. So, and he's so smitten. I mean, he got a smooch right off the bat, but he's so smitten that, basically says, these 7 years just seem like a few days.
Yeah.
So that's good, because 7 years is not a whole lot of entertainment, just a bunch of staring up at the sky and shepherding and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I guess the quicker that can go by, the better.
And then the deception.
Yep. And then the worm turns.
Yes. Because it's time for Jacob to receive his wife.
Right.
So they have a party.
Yep.
Which was customary back then.
Yep. A feast.
To throw the feast and
have
a party. But then, when it's time for Jacob and his wife to consummate their marriage, Laban does a little switcheroo on him.
Yep. We said last week Laban's a piece of work, and he's a little deceiver, but hey, Jacob the heel's got some, got a little deception back to him, so.
That's right. So
he gets it. So Yeah, so I mean, evidently, I've seen movies who try to put together what this custom was like, but evidently, they're either evidently in a dark room or she stays veiled for a long time, or something like. There got to be something like that where he didn't see her. I mean, obviously, apart from the smoochy woochy that they had at the beginning, obviously he's not. He's probably, there in her father's property working for him. Obviously, he's probably not, physically interacting with Rachel very, very much. So,
Right.
so they probably wouldn't be much if he's in a dark room or she's veiled or something, not speaking. However, obviously there's something where he couldn't see her clearly. Obviously, then it's probably not that odd to think that he couldn't see her. Or maybe that's the way. Maybe that was customary. That's the way they did it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
he obviously was able to hide her.
One of the things I read was that Jacob had deceived Isaac because of the blindness
Right.
that Isaac had. So the
Right.
darkness of his eyes, he couldn't see. So
Right.
Laban is using the darkness of night and
Right.
veil to deceive
Right.
Jacob. So the darkness is used in both cases to cause deception.
Well, and you can see by my smirk, there's also something else he was able to use. Let's just say he was able to use. I imagine he was able to use Jacob's anxiousness,
Yes.
so to speak, against him.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like been out in that field for a long time.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting that he doesn't realize till morning.
Right. So that would be when the sun comes up.
Yep.
And she obviously doesn't say a thing.
Yep. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So there are a lot of factors working against him, So.
Now, another interesting thing to me is that Jacob confronts Laban about the deception.
Yes. Yeah.
And
what have you done to me?
Yeah. And you've deceived me. That's my job.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Say it isn't so. I can't believe this. This is so unfair that I have been deceived.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Man, never been on this end of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I didn't see that coming.
But they work out this arrangement.
Well, kind of like what choice does he have? Laban knows what he's doing. He's a shrewd businessman.
But the thing that's interesting to me is that they work out this arrangement that, okay, you give her week, and then I'll give you Rachel also.
Right. Right.
So then he, for another 7 years.
Right. Right.
So it's like payment up front.
Right.
Rachel, and then Jacob works for another 7 years.
Right.
Nowhere do you see, and we'll get into this later in later chapters, but nowhere do you see Jacob just all of a sudden deciding, I'm taking off.
No.
Before his 7 years are up. He works out 7 years.
Right. Sure does. Yeah. And Rachel's got some pull on him, that's for sure. So he's working out that 7 years. And obviously, evidently, he's a pretty darn good worker too, because obviously that's part of the deception is he wants him working there for another 7 years. So whatever he does it well.
Well, and that was another thing that I had read is that when Isaac's servant came looking for a mate when Abraham's servant came looking for a mate for Isaac,
right?
He had all these gold and all his jewels and all this stuff, and
he had the dowry.
Yeah. That's what was intriguing to Laban then.
Right.
Now this time it was Jacob's ability to work,
right.
His strength. Obviously he had a lot of strength to move that stone.
Sure.
And they were together for a month, so he probably knew this guy can do some work.
Right.
And so it was pretty profitable to him to deceive this guy into as many years as he could get out of him.
Obviously, evidently, yeah.
Yeah. So
He's like, I've got the ultimate leverage now. I mean, he figured out he's the snaky, shrewdy little business guy there. So he knew what he was doing.
yep.
So
So then the first 4 of the 12 boys are born to Leah.
right, because Rachel's barren, so she's not producing anything at this
She's
point.
not producing anything. So, it says that the Lord saw that Leah was hated or unloved.
Right.
And so
Unloved,
he
yeah.
opened her womb.
Right.
And but Rachel was barren.
Well, and honestly, she's kind of like an innocent. I mean, maybe not later on, but I mean, you got to think in this, she's kind of an innocent bystander. I mean, you know, what is she going to say? No, she's not going to say no to her dad telling her to do this. I mean, you can obviously see in some way. I mean, daughters are property in a manner of speaking to some. I mean, obviously, he kind of uses them as property to get. You know, I mean, a dowry is a dowry. I get that. You've got to pay for. You know, you pay in some manner, but I mean, this is family. So he's sort of like bartering them as property because, yeah, I mean, he could have, I mean, he didn't have to do it this way, but, you know, that's just obviously the nature of what Laban is. So,
well, and it's interesting too that that the reason he gives is because Leah was the older, and it's our custom that you don't marry off the younger before the older. And what was the whole thing with Jacob? You know, Jacob
right.
for the birthright and for the blessing,
Right.
because the older is supposed to get the blessing and the birthright,
Right.
Younger, and so it's all there's kind of a twist in there too. That's kind
Sure, matches right up.
Yeah.
But I always thought, listen, that custom, and I've read this so many times, listen to that custom thing. I was like, I wonder if it was really the custom or that's just what he said. This guy,
yeah,
kind of a, you know, there's not a lot of integrity in Laban, so to speak. So I've always kind of wondered when I read that, I'm just like, you're a stinking dirty liar.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You dog.
You never know. It's funny, but yeah, he gets it right back. He gets it right back. But I just say Leah, you know, you feel for her in a manner because again, she could speak up to her dad and say, Dad, I want to go, but you're going. You know, I've got a plan, and that's all there is to it. You're going to do what I tell you, and that's it. And she's kind of caught in this thing, and you know, obviously, I mean, I'm sure it felt fabulous. The next guy, the guy you just laid with, gets up and you know is pissed off and probably doesn't want a whole lot to do with you. So I mean, Laban in his, you know, in his bad ways and deceptive ways of doing this was, you know, made it worse for her too. So I mean, that was unfortunate. And again, you know, God being merciful and obviously showing, you know, and this kind of a little bit, if you think about it, this shows a little glimpse of the nature of God. You know, he has mercy upon Leah, showing that she was unloved and opened her womb. I mean, 4 straight kids, bada bing, bada boom. So it's just like,
yeah,
you definitely know that the Lord understands every little thing, you know, that we deal with or our situations. And I mean, still, it has to be within his will how it's going to turn out, because it may not turn out. I mean, you know, she had 4 boys. It didn't make much of a difference, you know, as far as, you know, because she kept saying, well, you know, that surely now my husband will love me. Then on to the next one. I'm unloved still, you know, therefore I get another one. She conceived again, and therefore, you know, now this time my husband will become attached to me, and this time I praise the Lord, therefore, you know, she named him on the next one. So just like, obviously it wasn't making a big difference. But you just see like the nature of God there, you know.
Yeah.
Like you know, because you hear so many times, like, you know, I'm sure you've heard this millions of times throughout your life. I have too, the very common thing. Well, how can God let this happen? You know?
Yeah.
You know, how can God let this happen? You know, all this, you know, this tragic thing. How can a loving God let this happen? Blah, blah, you know, all that, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's obviously aware. There's a sovereign will that we won't understand at the given time, but, you know, obviously he's aware and cares. This is a very good, very nice glimpse into that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, and it says, therefore, you know, she named the last one Judah, then she stopped bearing. So that's where we end up.
Yep.
And then we go into this back and forth thing that, like we were talking about earlier, like I was reading an interesting point out of a commentary was, this, it sort of shows because later on in the Mosaic life, in the Mosaic life, I just mixed two thoughts. In the Mosaic law, having more than one wife is not going to be okay.
Right.
Obviously, in the very beginning, in Genesis, the beginning of Genesis, there was one man, one woman. There wasn't supposed to be multiples. You see the trouble already so far that comes from multiples. That you couldn't really call Hagar, Abraham's wife, but she was sort of like a concubine given. But when there's more than one, the jealousy, everything goes right again. So it's not as if Jacob's deception payback hasn't already been heavy. It's going to get any more so because now we've got these two fighting in this, paraphrase, as a pregnancy war. So, and it just shows the problems with polygamy and how, and it was, in John MacArthur's commentary that it's obviously, he felt it was obvious that that having multiple wives is not necessarily the will of the Lord. He seemed to allow it at one time, but it's not obviously not his will. And obviously it gets brought back in the Mosaic law later when it's one man, one wife.
Yeah.
You have multiple, you're going to have problems enough with just one.
Oh, yeah.
Two or more, there might be some problems. So,
yeah.
So anyway, very next start of 30, where you get into the pregnancy war. But as of right now, this is where we're at. So he's got 2 wives. He's still got some more time to work. And,
Yeah. The rest, no, not all of them. The majority of the rest of the heads of the 12 tribes are born in 30.
Right.
I think all but Benjamin. I think.
Right.
30.
And living with Laban isn't going to get any easier.
Yes. Yes.
So
it's not. And so so there's more excitement to come.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
The adventure has just begun for Jacob.
Yeah.
It's just begun.
Yeah. And you're locked up again. Hopefully you won't be locked up on the recording the whole time, but you've kind of come out. So, but the video part of it is fine. So we'll just let it go and see what happens.
But I think that wraps it up.
All right. 26 minutes. All right. Well, everybody, we hope you enjoyed this. I don't think we're going to divide this in 2. I think we'll leave it just one, and then we appreciate everybody watching.
Yep.
And please leave comments. Let us know what you think. How you like my hair, whatever. Yep. I like Mike's beard.
Sure.
I mean, we like comments. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll reconvene again in the near future. I would say next week, but we just can't guarantee things.
In James it says, "Don't say I'm going to do this tomorrow without saying, if the Lord wills."
Right.
So if the Lord's willing, we'll see you next week.
There you go.
Bye.